Ashe, Ashe and Grand Rising once again to you all, my very beautiful people. Yes, you, my highly enriched melanin people. You, the Earth's original organic humans, aka my fellow Africans. Yes, it is I, the Mystic Philosopher. And yes, it is evident, quite evident, that I'm still here with you on this side of reality. And welcome back to the Mystic P is talking again on the 15 minutes with I, the Mystic Philosopher. This is episode 49. And of course, the main topic of this series of talks is stress on the mind, or more correctly, the impact that this thing called stress has on the thing that we humans call mind. And from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, the solution to this problem or this disease called stress can, or it may be found in and by understanding and overstanding the want equation, which namely, want is equal to money, which is equal to stress, which is equal to unhappiness, and also by putting into practice the knowledge that can be gained from this profound equation. And the quote that I've been using to make my points and illustrate my points is from the Adamic Race History and Holy Book, according to the 23rd Psalm, verse 1, the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want. Now, in my last episode, I told you that because we are mentally colonized, meaning because our minds are under the influence, the dominance, the governance and control of our enemies, and because we are forced and conditioned to be using the language of our oppressors to communicate first with ourselves, then with them, the oppressors, then with the universe, and with our source, that we are basically and royally screwed, not to use the other word. And for those of us that have eyes that are seeing and ears that are hearing and minds that are understanding and overstanding, to us the evidence shows that we are their slaves. The evidence shows and is hereby showing that we are in reality powerless, that we are ineffective, that we are wanting and are found wanting. So when I say powerless, all those who are talking about black power, but I'll get back to that another time. We don't have power. Anyhow, and that's for next time. And I told that from I, the Mystic Philosopher's perspective, no sane or rational human among us would even attempt to dispute these facts. In fact, you no doubt will remember me telling you and pointing out to you that the very word government, by meaning and definition, is mind control. I broke it down for you and by telling you that according to the English language, the word government is a compound word, meaning it is made up of two or more words. And that government is made up of the word what? The two words govern, first word govern, which by meaning and definition is control. Therefore, to govern means to control, aka to influence. And ment is of the mind, as in the word mental. Therefore, government by meaning and definition is to control the mind, to influence the mind. And the government are those that are in control of our minds. The government is the group of humankind that are influencing and controlling our minds. And how do they strategically, metaphysically, spiritually, religiously, legally, politically, demonically, and otherwise control our minds, and by extension our lives and our physical bodies? These are questions you should be asking yourself. And I tell you, you will no doubt remember that I told you and explained to you that it is through their mental colonization. I'm sure you never hear anybody talking about mental colonization. I, the Mystic Philosopher, have been talking about these things for a long time. Meaning, it is true and with their words, and by extension their language and languages. And in this our particular case, it is through the English words and the English language. That's how our mind has been colonized, mentally colonized. Yes, it is true. And as strange as all this may sound to most of you, my melanin people that are hearing these things for the very first time, it is because of the fact that all of our secrets, including our spiritual and metaphysical power, our strength and our redemption, if you will, etc., are enveloped in our words and by extension in our language. And our activated common sense will affirm that if we are not using our words and our language, then we cannot communicate effectively. If at all, communicate with the universe, with our source, with our ancestors, with our ancestral spirits, with our ancestral God and gods. Our common sense, if activated, will tell us that in our words and in our language are the spiritual, metaphysical, and mystical keys to open the door to our source. And without the right key or keys, we are defeated. And that by trying, our activated common sense will also tell us that by trying, by using or by trying to use the keys of our enemies, it means that we are at the very least twice defeated. If we're trying to gain access to our source and stuff by using the keys of our enemies, the words of our enemies, we are not only defeated, but at least twice defeated. You will no doubt remember that I told you that words and by extension language is from the source and by extension the gods, from the God and gods and ancestors of a race of people, the purpose of which is for them to communicate with each other in times of trouble and for individual or for the race of people to call upon them for help and for deliverance. Them meaning their God, their gods, their ancestors, etc., etc. And thus it is written in the Adamic race history and holy book, aka the Christian Holy Bible, and I quote, "For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved," unquote. Now again, common sense, if it is activated, will affirm that everyone here does not mean and does not include you and I, my melanin people. It definitely does not mean, and it most definitely does not include you and I that are not of the Adamic race, period. From my perspective, only those among us that are still asleep, those among us that are still dumbed down, wrapped up and tied up in the system's religions, and in this particular case, the system and it's Jesus, that believe this nonsense. Because common sense, again, if activated, will affirm that if that was true, then we all would be saved, we all would be delivered from these, our malevolent foes, and their evil attitude and manifestation towards us a very long ago. So all those who are talking about the saved from what? You idiot? For example, we would be saved or we would be delivered from their injustices, we would be delivered from their murders and the systems, and we would be delivered from their system and their police brutality. In fact, just this morning alone I'm walking, it happened to me the second time now recently. This morning my wife and I are walking. And a car just drove up beside with two cockaside in it. And they just throw something at us and drive away. Just like that. We would be delivered if this was true from we've been calling upon them. Anyhow, let me get back here. Right? So we will be delivered from these police brutality, from their bigotry and from their isms and schisms. You name it or you name them. Again, it is written in the Adamic race history and holy book. And I quote, "My sheep know my voice," unquote. And if the sheep, common sense will tell us that if the sheep know the voice of the shepherd, then we can logically assume that the shepherd also know the voice of the sheep or of his sheep. And thus communication can take place. And in times of trouble, all the sheep has to do is call out to his or to their shepherd for help. And the shepherd will send help, or the shepherd will even come himself and save them. Or save it, or delivered it, the sheep. Now in previous lectures I also told you that names are one of the most important word, sound, vibration, sign, and symbol in any language and among any and every race of humans on the planet Earth. In fact, I also told you that the names of all the gods, the ancestors, the spirits, the angels, the saints, the prophets, the prophetesses, the holy men and women, etc., etc., are revered and held in very, very high esteem by all races and cultures of people on the earth. So it was among us too. And thus, it is written as a commandment that is punishable by death in the Adamic race history and holy book. And I quote, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord thy God will not hold him guilty lest thou taketh his name in vain, unquote. Again, common sense, if activated, will affirm that by calling on the name and names of our enemies, the Adamic race and races, God and gods, cannot and will not do us any good. But more on this point at another time. And here again, common sense, if activated, will affirm that if we do not know the name of our source and our ancestral God and gods and our ancestors, etc., then how are we going to call upon them for help and for deliverance, especially in this our times of trouble? And our common sense, if activated, will affirm that we cannot call on them meaning our source and our ancestral God and gods and our ancestors, our mighty ones, etc., by any names, because by doing so is not only grossly disrespectful and would not only be grossly disrespectful, but that we would not and that we cannot invoke them. We cannot invoke power from them. That's why we're so defenseless. That's why they take us at a disadvantage away. But more on that at another time. And our common sense, if activated, will tell us that calling them by using English words and English names, etc., is disrespectful and would not and cannot be effective either. Common sense, if activated, will tell us that talking to them in a strange language like this, our oppressor's language, aka the English language, will not and cannot be effective either. But this is not, because this is not their language, and neither is it their words, their language, or languages that they gave us via our ancestors to communicate with them, for us to communicate with them. Just like how he give the Adamic race their English language to communicate with their God. But more on that at another time. So now you know, understand and understand and overstand what I have told you, that one of the first thing I told, I think even in my last episode, I told that one of the first thing our enemies did when they invaded and colonized us was to desecrate and destroy all our altars and holy places to our ancestors, and above all, to persecute and murder, cut out the tongue of our ancestors. Those of us, murder us for using our own language, and then to mentally colonize us with bastardized versions of their perverted language. Please don't get it twisted. We don't know their language. They don't teach us their language. We have to sort it out to get along, to get by. Hopefully by now you will know, understand, and understand what it really meant, or what is really meant by the phrase screwed royally, or royally. You know what? Hope you know the meaning of the phrase. The evidence coupled with our own life experiences will show that we have been and are being screwed over and over and over again. Royally. I could get into that another time. Again, thus far in today's episode, I honestly think that I have given you, or at the very least, I honestly think that I may have given some of you, if not all of you, a lot more to think about and possibly a lot more to look forward to in my next episode, especially as it relates to stress, the seed called want, and the want equation, etc. And so for the interest of time, yes, I think that I should just pause here for today and ask that you please join me in my, when next I'm talking again, possibly in episode 50, where and when I will be talking and sharing with you more of my perspective on these things. And this time on the magical, I'll continue to share on the magical, mystical, and metaphysical aspect of the word want, and the commandment and command, you shall not want. For my people, I shall not want. You shall not want. We have to get rid of this word completely out of our vocabulary. But we'll not get there yet. Right? I shall not want. You shall not want. We shall not want. And nor should you, or nor should we, be found wanting. Now, in the meantime and between time, please let me again remind you, my people, that yesterday is history. It too is dead and gone, no more to come back. Tomorrow is a mystery. It too may never come, but today is a gift, which is why we call it the present day. And so I hereby implore you, I'm imploring you to live for today, and by live I mean claim your natural birthright. And just in case you do not know, or you might have forgotten what that is, it is your happiness and full joy today. Let no one steal your joy. Full joy today. And let's hope for tomorrow, for it too may never come, for you or for I. Remember, the past is dead and static. Nothing we can do to change it. The future is dynamic. Whatever we do from now on will affect it. Thanks for your time and thanks for listening. I am the Mystic Philosopher. Ashe, 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 I say.